Good morning, Grand Rising, everybody. So good to be with you guys today. It's your girl, Coach Brandi Neck here. Fit New Life, doing what we do best, okay? Mastering our minds, our bodies, and our lives. And today, I like to move folks through in these sunrise sessions. First of all, shout out to you for being here in sunrise session, waking up before the sun has even risen to work on yourself. So you guys are already ahead of the curve with a lot of people who are out there trying to navigate life and navigate this journey. The fact that you're here right now says something about your dedication. If you're not watching live, that's all good. Would love to catch you on a live session. But if you're not watching live, doesn't matter. You still showed up. So, all right. So in yesterday's episode, what we did is we talked about what were all of the different wellness dimensions, right? We named 8 of them. So we have 8 different wellness dimensions. And now we want to get into each dimension piece by piece. And so what we'll be doing is cycling through those dimensions, starting first with the physical dimension. All right, reminder, what's the physical dimension? The physical dimension is going to be how you eat, how you sleep, how your movement is, your exercise, all those things. They're all going to be positioned into this dimension of physical well-being, physical wellness. So today, what I thought would be nice to do is an actual assessment of our physical well-being. And so let me just go ahead and pull that up for us, that assessment. Okay. So first I have with me, first off, a shout out to Peggy Swarbrick, okay, is the person who is really responsible for naming these 8 dimensions. So we want to shout out to her. But she's got a book, all right, that kind of outlines all these different things in a workbook that gives an assessment. And so I'm taking out from this workbook. You can find this workbook online. So you can find this workbook online. I will drop the information for that, where you can actually find this online with this assessment online. And so let's start with what physical wellness is. And so if you're on the workbook, if you want to look at this later, this will be page 6 of that workbook. Like I said, I'm going to drop that in the actual description so that you can see what I'm looking at. Okay, so we're going to start with physical wellness. And since physical wellness involves the maintenance of a healthy body, good physical health habits, good nutrition, exercise, and obtaining appropriate health care. So this is what we normally think of when we think about, wellness, well-being, health, this kind of thing, all falls into just this one dimension, right? So there's layers to this, and this is just this one dimension. So let's go and answer these questions for ourselves. And as we're answering them for ourselves, I will also talk a little bit about my experience in the physical wellness dimension. For those of you who know about me, or those of you who are just being introduced to me, I am a health behavior change specialist, certified personal trainer, certified health coach, and so this is obviously a dimension that's really important to me. And then and actually currently, my domain in terms of my sport is dance. And so I've been dancing my entire life. So I've always been, using this sort of like kinesthetic learning. I've always been using my body, in terms of just kind of expressing myself. And so it's really interesting how natural physical wellness should come, right? It should come. But my experience with it has actually been a little bit of a roller coaster, because with some of that stuff, you may have one aspect of the physical well-being down. For me, it was like the physical activity. But on the other hand, you might have another part of it where it's really messed up. And for me, that was the nutrition. And so we want to be able to identify what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are in each of these dimensions. So then that way we can go back and reverse engineer what's our plan to achieve mastery in those areas. All right, so we want to identify your strengths. What are the things that you do well, right? What are the things that you do well? Your daily routines, your habits we talk about, right? And valued life activities that build and maintain your physical wellness. So we're going to go through this together. And like I said, as we're talking about this, I'm going to use myself as an example. All right. So we're talking about things that I do well, right? Just mention it. Move. I move really well, right? And I'm always telling my clients, I'm also going to give this to you, but if you can't do anything else and you can walk, walk. That counts, right? You're moving. You're doing something physical. Our bodies are made to move. I say that over and over and over and over again. Our bodies are made to move. So you want to make sure that you are moving. Okay, point blank, period. If you like to do sports and you want to make sure that you're doing more of those, if you like to dance, you want to make sure that you're dancing more, find a dance class that you enjoy, whatever it is that you like. If you want to just walk, if you want to jog, you want to run, do marathons, you know what I'm saying? Like do things that are going to make you feel good, and do it often. Okay, so from there, we talk about daily routines. So what are your daily routines? Like, when do you wake up normally? What do you eat normally? What does your day look like? And so I'm somebody who, like, I never used to like routines. I never used to like, any of that stuff. I got to do what, when. I was not trying to have it, me being the rebel that I am. And so what I started doing is, for one, writing down, right? I used to plan out my meals, right? Plan out my meals. What am I going to eat in this next week? And one of the things that helps me not to feel so regimented with that is by having options. And so I might put like, okay, this week for breakfast, I'm going to have a choice of oatmeal or egg whites, and avocado, or I might have a choice of tofu scramble, right? And then I'll cycle through those three things all week, or I might have a yogurt, right? And so I'll put like all of my meals, what am I going to have? And then I'll pack them and go on about my way, right? When I'm doing really, really good, when I'm really on top of it, that's what it looks like, right? And so I want to say, all right, so now I have a habit for how I prepare myself, right? I have a stimulus control for how I prepare myself to eat better, right? Because I've already pre-planned out what I'm going to have. I've planned out options so that I don't feel so strictly committed to, one thing every single day, and I don't get bored with it. All right. And I'm setting myself up for success, right? So that will be a part of my routine. And you do that enough, you do a routine enough, and it just becomes a habit, it just becomes a part of how you live, right? And then after that, I might say, okay, well, I have a Muay Thai class that I take in the morning. It's a part of my routine. I take it in the morning when that class is being offered. And that helps me feel good. It's something that I do for myself. Feels really good to be able to go to that class. And and it also satisfies, this physical need that I have in the morning to kind of like get up and get going. Right. All right, so you want to identify what are those habits in your daily routines, okay? Valued life activities, right? For me, I would also say that the Muay Thai, or for people who don't know, it's Thai kickboxing, right? And the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? Like I take all these martial arts classes in the mornings. That's a valued life activity that helps. Sometimes I go on what I call wisdom walks. And what are wisdom walks? Wisdom walks are when I plug in, have on my headphones, and I either listen to a podcast, or I'll listen to something that has to do with one of these wellness dimensions, whether it's a TED Talk or whether it's a Zoom meeting that I have in the investment group that I'm a part of, whether, whatever it is, right? Listen to it and walk. Might be an audio book. I listen to it and walk. And as I'm walking, right, there's also an effect that has where whatever I'm listening to actually sticks with me a little bit better. And so that's another thing. It's a valued life activity. Make sure that I do it. Normally I do that like in the evenings, or I'll do it in the afternoon if I get a break, probably on the weekends more so than the weekdays. Weekdays are crazy. Okay. All right. So you want to identify what are those strengths. So do that for yourself. You want to identify 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Identify 5 different strengths that you have. Write them down. So even if you don't have the worksheet out or you plan on doing it later, just jot them down right now so that when you do the worksheet, you put it out. Otherwise, we're doing it together right here, right now. Why not? Okay. And now from there, you're going to go into a physical wellness self-assessment. So we're going to go through this slowly to make sure that you get it. Okay. And I want you just to write either a 2 for something that you almost always do. You're going to write a 1 for something that you occasionally do. Okay. And you're going to write 0 for something that you seldom do. Try to keep track of your points. Write it down. Okay. I'm not actually going to go and score these. I mean, I'll talk about each of these for myself just so you have it as an example, but I want you to score for, for you. What would that be? Okay. So number 1, there are 10 questions on this. Number 1 is, do you exercise? So if you exercise aerobically, which is vigorous, continuous exercise, okay, for at least 20 to 30 minutes, at least 3 times per week. Are you doing that, right? Are you exercising? And I would go with, really the recommendation is 150 minutes, right, per week, right? That's just the standard for where we kind of get just, some health benefits. We want to get to 150. This is where some of the diseases that we often are subject to, like the heart disease or the diabetes and all these things. This is when we start to see a little bit of relief, is when we begin to get about 150 minutes or so, and more than that if you can, of aerobic activity per week. So you want to be thinking about that. Do you exercise 20 to 30 minutes at least 3 times a week? That's not even asking for the standard. It's just asking, do you move? Do you move a little bit? Okay. Do you eat fresh fruits, vegetables, and whole grains every single day? This is going to be a part of a varied diet, right? Are you eating these good, nutritious whole foods, or are you find yourself eating a little bit more processed foods that, a bit more problematic in the body? How are you eating? What are you eating? So you want to be thinking about that, right? Obviously, we know that eating the processed foods is like, we do it a lot because it's a part of our culture, it's part of our American culture, but it's not good for us. It's really not good for us, right? Processed food is going to be anything, and let me be clear, right? Because most foods are processed. They're not coming to you like in their natural state without going through some kind of process. But we want to be thinking about processed, like we're talking about heavily processed foods, right? We're talking about like, I don't know, we're talking about like our ramen noodles, heavily processed, right? We're talking about our lunch meat, heavily processed, sausages, right? Those kind of things, right? They went through the like hot dogs. Oh my gosh, right? We're talking about like those kinds of foods that are super, 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 super chemically processed and put together and formulated, and look, nothing like they did in their original state. That's what we mean by the processed foods, right? So we want to be staying further away from those and getting more into fruits, vegetables, natural foods, foods that look like how they did in their natural state, but maybe had minimally processed just for either their preservation, their shelf life, or or fending off pests and pathogens, right? So those are okay. More of that, less of the processed. Okay. So you want to think about that. Do you do that? And you want to score that. Remember, score 2, 1, or 0. 0 is barely do it. 2 is I do this all the time. It's what I do. And the middle is 0. I mean, the middle is 1. All right. Do you avoid tobacco products? Okay. I'm not going to preach about how bad smoking is for us, but it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, and leads to a host of various diseases. So we want to try to avoid it. Are you avoiding it, right? So think about that. Are you avoiding it? Do you avoid tobacco products? That's pretty straightforward. Okay, now this is something that you may or may not think about. A lot of us drive in cars, all the time. And so we're talking about like what kills us and what puts our lives at danger. One of the things is not wearing seatbelts. Not wearing seatbelts, right? So, how many automobile accidents happen on a daily basis, and how many people, have we lost? Like I know I've lost people who are close to me to car accidents, and we want to think, hey, what are you doing to protect yourself? Are you always wearing a seatbelt? When I was growing up, strangely enough, wearing seatbelts, it wasn't like a huge thing. I don't know why. I'm an 80s baby, grew up in the 90s. I don't know if anybody else can like attest to this, but for me, I feel like I didn't really start wearing seatbelts until I got to be a little bit older. Just never really had to growing up. So I don't know what that's saying about anything, but I just do know that's my reality. So anyway, so this is very important to our physical well-being, that we're keeping ourselves physically safe, right? So now we're broadening a little bit the spectrum of what it means to be physically well, right? We also mean that we're also protecting ourselves, protecting our physical body, right? From the outside as well, from outside threats as well as internal threats. Okay. And then, do you avoid drinking alcohol and caffeinated and sugary beverages? Oh my gosh. This is going to get a lot of buzz. Ooh, I love my ginger ale. I do. I love my ginger ale. Can't have it all the time. Why? Because it's sugar water, carbonated sugar water. Okay. Yeah. If you like the cold drinks, you like the carbonated beverages, right? With all the extra sugar, guess what? They've got sparkling seltzers. They've got sparkling waters that are flavored that you can use to substitute with some of these sugary drinks that don't use sugar. They're not healthy for you, but they might be a better option on your path to like changing that habit, right? So think about that, right? How many of us drink every night, right? I know that, going to another sort of framework, right? I'm a shout out to 8 Zone. To the 9, what's it called? The 9 power habits, right? 9 power habits, right? Of the blue zones, right? And so these habits, one of them is drinking wine on a daily basis. But guess what? It's a small amount. And so just let me rewind that back real quick, because I just realized that some folks may not know what blue zones are. So blue zones are areas across the entire planet where it is normal for people to be living well into their hundreds. We want to be folks who can live long, happy lives. So sometimes we look at, what are the habits of these folks that are living in the blue zones, that are living to be like 110 years old on a regular basis. What are they doing? So, so the reason why I'm bringing this up is because one of the power habits that they had, with the exception of a community in California, there is a community, and yeah, it's a Church of Latter-day Saints in the United States that actually lives regularly to be this age. They do not drink, but all the other communities, right? The one in Okinawa, the one that's in Portugal, the one that's in Costa Rica, like all these other communities, they have some sort of wine every night. So wine seems to be okay. Maybe one glass, and not no like huge glass, one like 8 ounce or so, 6 ounce, 8 ounce a day is okay. Drinking excessively, not okay. Right? We all probably know some folks who have, lost their livers, been on dialysis and things like that because of just doing entirely too much. So you want to make sure that you are avoiding that, right? And caffeinated drinks, okay, for all of our exercise buffs who love their pre-workout that's like jacked up with caffeine. We make our own choices. But it is important to note that caffeine is also a drug. It has some beneficial effects, right, in the short term. But over a long period of time, you want to think about, like, what does that caffeine do? Are we getting caffeine addicted? And I'm sure a lot of coffee drinkers that don't do decaf, know about this. If you ever tried to stop drinking coffee in the morning, what happens? You get a headache, you feel shitty, right? And so we want to be aware of that, right? Who are you avoiding drinking caffeinated and sugary beverages? A huge one. We want to be moving away from insulin resistance. And one of the things that leads to it, high blood sugar. Okay, all right, moving on. Okay, are you getting an adequate amount of sleep? Oh my gosh, and what is that, 7 to 9 hours? What is sleep, right? I think Steve Harvey had a viral bit that was going around that was just like, he said he didn't know anybody who was successful that got some sleep. Okay. He said, I don't know nobody who sleeps, who has time to sleep, right? And so here's what I say. You have to balance it out. You have to find out what that healthy balance is. It's something that a lot of us struggle with because we live in a society that's like go, 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 go. Especially if you own a business, you got kids, you got a job, you got anything that's going to require your time. You may be looking around like Coach Brandi, I don't know what you're talking about, but this sleep, I ain't seen it, right? So we want to try to figure out, like, okay, how important is sleep? It's super important. We got to reset. Our body needs to reset. We got to do it. It's not, it's not a choice. Without sleep, we will die in most cases. I think there's maybe like one anomaly or something that, went around the internet for a little bit about a guy who lost his ability to sleep and was like still walking around kind of zombie-esque. But we want to make sure that we're getting our sleep because it makes us, it gives our chance, like it's like a computer rebooting, right? So it gives us a chance to be fresh in the morning, gives our body a chance to like do what it's got to do. And let's be our best selves. Remember, we're in this thing for life mastery, for life excellency, to master our 8 dimensions of wellness, to be well on our way in our health journeys, to change our lives. And so you gotta have sleep. It's a no-brainer. Okay, but not too much sleep. I should say that, but not too much sleep. You definitely don't want to be like sleeping 10 hours a day. That's way too much, because if you sleep more than, and for some people, it's like, if you sleep 9 hours, you may feel crappy also. But if you sleep more than that, like if you oversleep, I'm sure a lot of us has been there too, then you'll know exactly what that feels like, because you'll also feel crappy at the end of that. right? I hate oversleeping. I feel like it ruins my day. So you gotta find like what's your sweet spot? Do you have an alarm that wakes you up? Do you have a notification that lets you know like here's the time when you should be going to sleep? All of those are gems, by the way. You figure out how you're going to create this habit of getting adequate sleep. All right. And then are you keeping up? Ooh, this is gonna hurt some. Okay, you don't even know. Are you keeping up? But come a little closer. Come a little. I want you to look me in my eyes with this one because this is huge and a lot of us don't do it. Are you keeping up with your annual physical, dental checkups, immunizations, and self exams? Now, listen, I know that a lot of us don't do that. We just don't. And there's so many different reasons for that too, right? Like sometimes you may be like, well, okay, Coach Brandi, listen, you're saying I got to do all of this, but I don't even have health insurance. I get it. But at the same time, we need to try to making moves towards that. Right. And if you don't have health insurance, let's see if there's like a pro bono person or like a sliding scale, a low income, resource, like see what the resources are in your community and see if you can get, once a year at least to just make sure that your body is right. Yeah. We got to make sure that we have to make sure of that, right? Do what you got to do to make sure that your body is right. Okay. All right. We got 3 more. Do you maintain a reasonable weight for your age and height? Right? What's your body looking like? What is your body looking like? You know what I'm saying? Listen, and this goes both ways. Are you underweight? Are you overweight? Or are you right there healthy in the middle? You got to listen. And if you don't know how to navigate it, get with a professional, I mean, hey, I'm here, I'm here as just, so that right, a little plug for myself. I'm a personal trainer and health coach, behavior change specialist to everybody. You can access me virtually, right? I've got virtual programs. I do virtual coaching and training as well as in-person coaching and training for people who are in the Connecticut area. So, or in the tri-state area even. So, when I'm in New York, I can do training sessions there as well. When I'm in Massachusetts, I can do training sessions there as well. Get with your professional who can help you get to where you want to be in terms of maintaining a healthy weight, because having an unhealthy weight is only going to lead to a host of other diseases, including potentially the disease of obesity. And you don't want to you don't want to have any of these diseases. This is like antithetical to what we're trying to do with our lives, right? Like you're here with me, you're rocking with me, you're a fit new lifer. Like that's not what we do. That's not what we do. So if we are, in a place where our weight is an unhealthy weight for our body type, our height, our age, we want to make sure that we're thinking about it, not necessarily for the aesthetics of it. We want to be thinking about it for our health purposes, right? And we're going to keep it like that because we need to also at the same time make sure that we acknowledge that we all have different body types, right? We're all going to look different and we're all going to hold our weight differently, and that is okay, right? Like we are not shaming nobody for nothing. We're going to say like, all the body types are beautiful. What we're talking about is how this impacts your health. And so if you are at an unhealthy weight for your age and for your height, we want to make sure that we're addressing that. Right. We want to make sure that we're addressing that. What's kind of normalized in our communities, and when I mean our communities, I mean not just Black and Brown communities, but just like American communities in general. is overweight, right? So a lot of us have overweight, whether or not that overweight comes from muscle or if it comes from fat, a lot of us do have overweight, and that puts strain on our organs, right? I mean, we eat for social, we eat for emotions, we eat for culture, we eat for everything, it seems like, except for just to kind of like to live, right? We don't eat necessarily for function as much as we eat for these other feelings, right? These other connections that we have, and that's okay to an extent if we can recognize it, and monitor our portion sizes. But that's for a whole different episode. The point is that we are normalizing this, and so our habits that we have culturally end up they end up translating into a lot of us having overweight, or experiencing these overweight and these obese conditions within our bodies, and we want to make sure that that we are liberating ourselves from that. So you want to evaluate when you do this assessment, right? Or if you're just doing it with me right now, 0, 1, 2. How on top of it are you? How on top of it are you? Okay. All right. And then we're going to go into 2 more. Do you brush your teeth daily, at least twice a day? Okay. There's a whole bunch of germs that live in our mouths. We want to make sure that we're getting to it. Yes, this is all a part of physical well-being. It's comprehensive, y'all. We could be on physical. Listen, we could stay on this physical wellness topic for a long time. We're going to be cycling through all the different ones, but I mean, tons and tons and tons of things to talk about here. Make sure that you're brushing your teeth. Take care of your dental hygiene. Your mouth is so unbelievably close to your brain that any germs that live there, like I just, no, I don't want no parts of that. I don't want no parts of that, right? We don't think about it like that, but it is that serious. And then the last one is I use stress management techniques that help me stay calm and relaxed, right? What stress management techniques are you using? Stress is the silent killer. Do we know that? Do we know that? A lot of us are just so stressed all the time about different things. What are the stress management techniques that you are using to deal with your stress and anxiety? This is all a part of physical well-being. Now, this may sound dangerously close to emotional well-being, and there are some connections here, but stress is not just necessary. It might manifest itself emotionally, but it has very physical ramifications, right? We feel stress in our body. We feel stress in different ways, right? And so we want to make sure that we're managing how we're feeling it, right? How many of us get headaches when we're stressed? How many of us, get upset stomachs when we're stressed? How many of us get lower back pain when we're stressed, right? We have these physical manifestations of our stress, and our stress is something that is actually happening in our body with physiological ramifications. So we want to be thinking through all of those things. So listen, family, those are our 10 assessment questions for physical wellness. Please do share what your score was. The highest score that you can get on this would have been a 20, and the lowest that you could have gotten on this would have been a 0. So please share if you want to. You can even DM me at Coach Brandi Nick, BrandiNik. All right, and just share with me. I would love to hear from you guys on what your experiences are and where you are in this dimension of physical wellness. Okay. All right, guys. Well, I will catch you all tomorrow. I will catch you guys all tomorrow, same time, same place, okay, for our sunrise sessions. Thank you so much for waking up with me, Coach Brandi Nick, coming straight to you, a fit new life where we master our bodies, we master our minds, and we master our lives. All right, continue on your journeys, family, and